her arms wrapped around a stranger before her mind could catch up, fingers gripping the back of his suit jacket as if he were the last solid thing in a room suddenly spinning out of control. The hotel lobby in downtown Chicago glowed with warm lights and polished marble, but Sarah felt cold all the way through when she saw her ex standing near the elevators with the woman who had replaced her. Panic made the decision for her. She stepped forward, leaned into the nearest man, and pretended she belonged there. In that split second, her heart pounded with the kind of fear that asks a quiet, dangerous question: what would you do if the past cornered you in public, watching to see if you were still broken? The stranger stiffened at first, surprised, but he didn't push her away. Sarah pressed her cheek against his chest, breathing in the faint scent of clean fabric and something expensive she couldn't place. Her eyes burned, not just from humiliation but from months of swallowed grief. She had come to this charity gala because her coworker had an extra ticket and because she was tired of hiding in her apartment after work, tired of letting memories dictate her routes through the city. She never imagined she'd run straight into the men who had promised forever and then quietly walked away when her life began to unravel. If you were her, standing there with your heart exposed and your pride hanging by a thread, would you cling to a stranger too? Behind her closed eyelids, Sarah saw the last year replay like a slow bruise. Her mother's illness had drained her savings and her energy, leaving Sarah juggling hospital visits with a job that barely paid enough to keep her small studio. When the weight became too heavy, her ex had grown distant, impatient with her exhaustion and her constant worry. He hadn't cheated, not technically. He had simply left when she needed him most, explaining that he needed peace, that her sadness was pulling him under. The memory still hurt more than she wanted to admit, especially now, seeing him polished and smiling as if he'd never known the version of her who cried alone in waiting rooms. The stranger's arm settled around her shoulders, steady and protective, as if this were the most natural thing in the world. Sarah sensed the shift immediately, the way his presence seemed to create a small island of safety around them. She dared to look up. His face was calm, thoughtful, with eyes that held no judgment, only a quiet question. Andrew had come to the gala out of obligation, another donation, another appearance expected of him as the head of a sprawling investment firm he'd inherited young and expanded carefully. Wealth had insulated him from many things, but it had also isolated him, teaching him how easily people mistook his money for his soul. Holding a trembling stranger who clearly needed refuge stirred something human and long ignored inside him. As the moment stretched, Sarah felt her breathing slow. The humiliation eased into something else, a fragile relief. The ex and his companion eventually drifted away, their interest fading when the scene no longer offered drama. When Sarah realized she was safe, she loosened her grip, embarrassment flooding in. She pulled back, cheeks flushed, expecting irritation or dismissal. Instead, Andrew's expression softened, and for reasons she couldn't explain, tears welled up. She hadn't planned to cry, but the kindness of a stranger after so much quiet abandonment cracked her open. It made her think of all the times she had wished someone would simply stay. They moved apart, but the connection lingered like warmth after a fire. Sarah mumbled an apology and an explanation that felt clumsy and insufficient. Andrew listened without interruption, the way people rarely did anymore. He didn't offer solutions or platitudes. He just nodded, as if acknowledging that life sometimes cornered good people and demanded desperate choices. When he suggested they sit for a moment, she followed, surprised by how easy it felt to trust him. If your heart had been bruised as often as hers, would you have allowed yourself that small leap of faith? Over the next hour, they talked about ordinary things, work stress, favorite quiet places in the city, the strange comfort of routine. Andrew didn't mention his wealth, and Sarah didn't ask. She assumed he was another well-dressed professional passing through her life. What she noticed instead was how he paid attention, how he remembered small details and responded with genuine interest. It felt unfamiliar, like stepping into sunlight after a long winter indoors. For Andrew, listening to Sarah speak about caring for her mother, about the fear of falling behind while everyone else surged forward, stirred memories of his own losses. Money had never saved him from grief, only given him better places to feel it. When the night ended, they exchanged numbers with a hesitance that suggested neither wanted to disturb the fragile magic of the evening. Days turned into messages, messages into coffee, coffee into long walks along the lake where the city noise softened into something manageable. Sarah found herself laughing again, surprised by the sound of it. She also found herself afraid. She knew how quickly comfort could be withdrawn, how easily promises could fade. Andrew sensed her caution and respected it, even as his feelings deepened in ways that unsettled him. Falling for someone who didn't know his world felt dangerous and liberating all at once. The truth emerged slowly. Sarah discovered Andrew's wealth not through his confession but through an article she stumbled upon during a late-night scroll, his face unmistakable beside headlines about acquisitions and philanthropy. The revelation sent her spiraling, old insecurities roaring back to life. She confronted him, not with anger but with a quiet ache, wondering if she had been a charity case, an experiment, a distraction from his rarefied life. Andrew met her fear with honesty, explaining that he had hidden nothing out of shame but out of longing to be seen without assumptions. He told her that her strength and vulnerability had reminded him what mattered beyond balance sheets and public image. Their relationship wasn't magically healed by love. Sarah still struggled with bills and exhaustion, with the lingering fear of being left when things grew hard. Andrew wrestled with the scrutiny that came with his status, the way kindness was often mistaken for calculation. They argued, stumbled, and learned. What held them together was not his billions or her resilience alone, but the memory of that first embrace born of desperation and answered with compassion. It was proof that sometimes, the smallest acts of kindness could reroute entire lives. Years later, Sarah would think back to that night whenever doubt crept in. She would remember how close she had come to running away, how a stranger's steady arms had given her just enough courage to stay standing. Life didn't erase her scars, but it taught her that healing often arrived disguised as chance. And Andrew would remember how love had found him not in boardrooms or luxury, but in a quiet moment when he chose to protect someone who needed shelter. Before the story ends, take a moment and tell us in the comments what this moment made you feel, and whether you believe small acts of kindness can truly change a life. If this story touched your heart, reminded you of your own struggles, or gave you hope in second chances, please gently support it by liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing so more hearts can find comfort in stories like this.